live now. Hi, everyone. This is Sarabjeet. You guys are watching this in the Business Analyst in Demand, either Facebook group or YouTube channel. This is an open session today. I don't have any sessions prepared for you guys. So if you have any topics around the Business Analyst domain or Scrum Master roles, lay them on me. So go ahead. What questions do you guys have?
Okay, I'll just go first.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're being interviewed, right, for, your background is business analysis and all of that, then you are being asked questions around domain that they don't think you'll be a fit because, let's say, for instance, your experience is in building financial solutions and now you are going into real estate. How can we convince the interviewers that domain experience kind of questions?
Yeah, so it's hard to build domain experience when you don't have that, right? So if you have a financial background, I would suggest that your first role probably be look for BA roles in the financial analyst area, or for companies, for banks or Morgan Stanley financial institutions. That may be the better bet. But I myself have gone from one domain to the next, and usually if you're answering the questions correctly, right, like if you're are able to convey that you know how to document requirements, you know how to work with stakeholders, domain knowledge can be learned, right? So when you're looking for a BA role, they're looking for two things. They're looking to see how successfully you can be a business analyst, how well you can work with stakeholders and people on your team. And the third is the domain knowledge. So if you are a good business analyst and you display, a vast knowledge of business analyst skill sets, right? And you just, based on the interview, you showcase that you have worked well with stakeholders. If you don't have the domain knowledge, that can be learned, right? And because generally, if they say to me, Sarabjeet, you're going into healthcare and you have no healthcare experience, and my response is, that is something that I can learn, right? Usually, it's better when you have people that don't have the domain knowledge come from outside of the industry, because they'll ask questions that generally people that are from the same domain won't ask questions like, why are we doing this? What is the benefit, right? So when you grow up in a certain domain, you generally ask the same, you generally are conditioned to behave a certain way, right? So in the event that they say, you don't have the domain knowledge, you can simply say that I'm open to learning. Domain knowledge is something that I look forward to learning about. And in my past, I have transitioned from one domain to the next successfully. So I feel like this is something that I can do this time around as well. Does that make sense? Does that help?
It does. Yes, a lot. Absolutely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I've done it successfully. I know lots of my peers, my colleagues have done that successfully as well. Will it be hard? Yes, but it's doable for sure. Okay, what other questions do you guys have?
Hi.
Hello.
Yes. My question is in relation to the relationship between a senior BA and I'll say junior BA. How do you think their relationship will synergize in order to help them achieve their best in an environment?
Sure. Are you, what role are you in? Are you the junior or are you the senior?
I'm the junior.
You're the junior. So you're saying, how can you do well in your new role as a junior business analyst, right?
Yes, correct. Yes.
So my suggestion would be the difference between junior and senior BAs. A senior BA will be the one that's probably leading a lot of the discussions. Senior would be the one to make sure the requirements are happening end to end. Are you in waterfall or an agile environment?
It's agile.
Okay, so in that situation, your senior probably is more concerned about, making sure that the backlog is complete, backlog grooming. If you are, first of all, there's really no BAs in Agile. So if you guys have a senior and a junior BA in the Agile environment, I would make sure that you work with him or her and, or, asking him or her, what is it that they need help and support in, right? Can you take on X number of user stories and work with stakeholders to define those out and make sure that you're writing complete user stories? I would have, your senior BA review your user stories to make sure that you're writing them completely. So it's more of a support role, I believe, support and also making sure that you're supporting them and helping them in the areas where they may not have enough time to do things, right? You definitely don't want to stay under their wing. You definitely want to say, what can I take lead on while you focus on other things, right? Because you don't want to be a shadow. You want your work to be seen, and you need to make sure that everybody sees what you're doing also. So make sure that you can take on an area where he or she are not highly focused on, so that way you can continue to do your work is getting done, and then you're going back and telling them. Are you reporting to the senior or are you reporting to the project manager?
I've just gotten the news that a senior BA is coming in, so that's why I'm just being proactive about how that relationship will be. So the person is coming in about 2 weeks time. So it's just, yeah.
How long have you been there?
2 months.
Okay. So you both are fairly new. You will probably be bringing him or her up to speed in the beginning, depending on their experience in the domain or the type of project that you guys are working on. It may be that he or she may take the lead on the bigger problems or the bigger, like the more complicated requirements or functionality. What is it that you're doing today on the project?
So it's building out process flows for financial services.
Okay.
And improving the processes for the AMLs and RFTs and things like that.
Okay. So I can just, I guess, give you a general because with somebody coming in who's coming in as a senior after you and the project is already underway, I would just have open lines of communication. Make sure that you can support him or her, take lead on specific things, circle back with them, make sure that you guys are all both on the same page. Most of the issues that I sometimes see happening between team members is not having open lines of communication, that you guys may be working both on the same thing, which is wasting time and can cause lots of frustration, not only between you two, but also the stakeholders that you guys are trying to work with. So open lines of communication, make sure you're taking lead on some things. He or she will be taking lead on other things. Make sure you're coming back together and working as a team.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, who's next?
Sarojit, can I go next?
Yes, for sure.
So my question is that, I just started working like a few months ago with the company, and I think we are at a point like they are pretty happy with me, and they might offer me full-time role.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to know, like, how would the negotiation go in for the salary, for the benefits?
What role are you in right now?
I'm a product owner.
Okay.
So, yeah.
How many years of experience do you have on your resume?
I think 5 years.
Okay. So what are you getting an hourly rate with the consulting company, or are you getting a salary? Okay.
Yeah.
So generally the way to figure out, so if you're getting an hourly rate, let's say, I'm just making this up. Let's say you're getting $20, right? 20. So you add the same amount to see what your annual salary would be at a company, right? So let's say if you're getting 20, so then let's say that your salary should be around 40, right? Based on your hourly rate. But, when you're working as a consultant, you're not getting the health benefits, you're not getting a lot of those things that generally you would in a full-time employment, right? But at the starting, if you're getting 20, I would go in, excuse me, and expect 40, but don't say the first number, right? Tell them, have them, if they say, what are your expectations? Just say, my expectations are whatever the market rate is. So they will give you a number. Always try to negotiate a little bit higher than the number that they're giving you, just because they know that they're starting lower than what they can afford to give you.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So generally, the rule of thumb is if you're getting, this is what I try to do, consulting hours, or they pay you a little bit more than they would full-time, just because benefits and insurance and all that stuff. So I would double what you're making. That's just kind of a baseline, just to know what's possible, and then wait for them to give you a number. Whatever number they give you, negotiate 5, 6, 7,000 above that. And if they're not okay with it, who cares? At least you tried to get, extra. You could also ask for sign-on bonuses. If you have to relocate for your job, you guys, a lot of people don't know this. There's something called relocation packages that companies have budget for. So like if you're locating from one state to another state or one city to another city for your job, which they want you to show up. Most jobs now are remote, but for example, companies do also have relocation packages where they can give you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to help you make that move for your new job. So that's also out there and available.
Also wanted to ask you, I wanted to do a certification course and I wanted to see if the company would pay for it.
Yeah.
So how would I approach them with that?
How much is the certification?
Say like $1,500.
That's not a big deal. I don't think you should bring that up part of your negotiation, right? Companies pay training, excuse me, you guys. Companies pay for training all the time. So you probably don't have to even bring it up during your negotiation. Once you are a full-time employee, you could say, I want to take the certification. Can you please let me know when is a good time or something like that. So generally it doesn't have to be, if you're saying, should it be part of your negotiation? No. How do you bring it up to your manager? Once you are a full-time employee, you can, during your one-on-ones, you could say, I'd really like to take the certification because I feel like it would help me do my job better. It may, shed some light on some of the areas I may be struggling with today. So please let me know when is the best time for me to sign up for this course. And usually companies have lots of training budget for, have lots of budget for training and development for their employees.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, one question here.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Okay, I do have one in the chat. It says, can you please share practices for starting a new Scrum team from scratch? Can you also share tips for building a PMO from scratch? Those are huge topics. Building a PMO from scratch and even building a new Scrum team from scratch, these are organizational changes, meaning that the entire organization needs to be on board. It's not something that your one team can decide that they want to do, right? It's an organization level of change. Any change, even when we roll out small mini projects, sometimes our stakeholders have a hard time accepting change. So things like this require everybody from the very top, like your senior leadership, to be on board, everybody on the team to be on board. And oftentimes I'm seeing that leadership makes a decision that we want to go agile, and the team members are not fully onboarded. So it takes a while to make that transition. I don't know what your situation in your team is right now. So To start as an agile team from scratch, the first thing that is required is training. Everybody needs to understand how agile works, right? It's a different mindset. A lot of developers that are very used to waterfall have a really hard time changing to agile just because they're just not comfortable in the way that development is done in the agile environment. And therefore, a lot of companies that I see, or even where I have worked, we do something called a hybrid approach to agile, where they may be gathering requirements in an agile fashion, but everything is being developed at the same time. So more like a waterfall approach. So lots of companies are doing hybrid just because it's hard to do fully transition into agile, but that's the best bet. All of these, both of those topics are huge topics. I'm happy to cover them, but they're huge topics, requires lots of change from the higher up and buy-in from the higher ups, leadership and management. I hope that answered your question. Another question is, how does a BA go from supporting in-house product development to supporting third-party product developments? It's easy. You're doing the same thing, right? When you say third-party product developments, that means that you're now working for a vendor. Is that the question?
Yes, it is vendor management.
Okay, well, tell me what your question is, because I don't want to give you the wrong answer.
Okay, so it's actually an advanced stage of interview with this company, and so the first set of interviews that I progressed through, they kept mentioning the fact that most of their products are third party. And so I'm just trying to prepare my mind, because most of my trainings experience has been, in-house developments. So third parties seem like a totally new thing. So I just wanted to, prepare my mind.
Do you know what third-party softwares are? Do you have any examples?
Okay, so I'm thinking like ready-made, off-the-shelf kind of
SaaS
solution.
products. Yeah, SaaS products, software as a service. So Salesforce is a SaaS product. Anything that you can buy off the shelf and customize to your to the company requirements is a third-party product, right? As a SaaS product. So Salesforce, Oracle, AWS, any of these systems which you don't have to build yourself and you can plug into the company's ecosystem are called SaaS products and or third-party products, right? So Salesforce is very, very popular nowadays. So I'll just give you an example of Salesforce. So Salesforce is a CRM. So let's say if you're working for a company and they've now purchased licenses to Salesforce and are using them, how would you support that? You would then first figure out, depending on if you're working with the client that's purchased Salesforce, you would understand how, how are you using the CRM or the requirements or the functionality that you're trying to automate with Salesforce. So your first step would be to figure out what your business needs are, right? So the same thing as you would when you're building a in-house product, understand what the business needs are, right? And then map them to what's available in the tool. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So first step is understanding business needs. Second step is figuring out what the tool provides. Third step is configuration, is how do you configure, because all tools have different things. You probably have to do some sort of data mapping. You're probably going to be moving some of your own data into Salesforce, for example. So you'll have to do some level of data mapping and data dictionaries and things to move data over to make sure it lands in the right place. But then most importantly, it's the same thing that you would do when you're building an in-house product. The only thing is you now have to learn Salesforce and figure out how you would match the two, the business needs from your own company to what Salesforce offers.
Okay, thank you. And then all of the processes still remains. There'll still be writing of user stories and all of that.
Yes, if you're in an agile environment, what you may do is write user scenarios, right? To say, okay, our stakeholders want this, but yes, user stories is good as well. If I'm moving over to yeah, user stories are good. But I would also, in addition to user stories, write scenarios on what is the expected result, right? So generally the way that the textbooks and the internet tell you to write user stories, they tell you to write 2 lines. I would include the acceptance criteria using the when, given, when, then format. I think in my YouTube videos or my videos in the past, you've probably seen that. When you add that, it adds a little bit more clarity on what the expected result is. So I would definitely do that to make sure that you're covering your bases on what needs to happen with this. Like, let's say if our users do this, what's the expected result, right?
Okay.
And then the difference with supporting third-party developments is you'll be working with a BA or somebody on Salesforce, for example, side to make sure that you can do those configurations. So your drafted requirements, instead of giving them to your development team, you would be giving them to the vendor team and work out how to make those configuration changes and or workarounds and such.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, who's next?
Hi, I can go next. So I don't know if I'm in the right Zoom. It seems like most people here already have a job. I haven't even taken the course. So I thought it was maybe like an exposure to what the course is about. Am I in the long Zoom?
No. Today's just an open session about whatever questions you guys may have. I can go in and provide information about the training that I provide. That's not a problem. Generally, my training, I focus on hands-on experience, right? I am not about textbook stuff at all. I have done this for 16 years of my life, and I've never picked up the Babok. I have, but then I closed it really quickly because lots of the things that the textbooks teach you are not the way that we develop projects, right? The way that the textbooks teach you is a good baseline, is a good method, but provided that you have all the time in the world and all the resources that you need to do all the documentation and everything that the books tell you to do, which generally is not the case even for Fortune 100 companies, right? We're always on a time crunch. We're always trying to figure out how to do the best we know how to do. And therefore, my training, I don't teach you the textbook stuff. I do have X amount of pre-recorded training, which gives you the baseline of how you implement waterfall projects and how you implement agile projects. But then the biggest component of my training is that we actually start a project from the scratch and we implement and we release into production where real people are using those systems and software solutions in the real world. So what that does is it gives you an understanding of how do you, as a business analyst, how would you start a project? You know, what documentation is required? How do you write user stories? How do you work with developers to implement solutions? So it gives you like hands-on exposure to everything that you would need to do as a business analyst. And I teach in the agile environment. So it's actually business analyst and Scrum Master. I'm covering both roles in this training.
Well, thank you for explaining that. So do you teach business requirements as well as functional requirements?
Yes.
And I believe you said you do teach Jira.
Jira, yeah.
What other tools are in your course?
So generally, business analysts, they use some sort of communication tools to interact with their project teams. They could be using Slack, they could be using Microsoft Teams, they could be using Skype. For my training, we use something called Slack, where we're communicating with everybody that's on the team, which are considered our BAs. Our developers, we do have a marketing team, UX designers. So we're interacting with a few different teams in Slack to make sure that everybody's on the same page. I do teach you guys how to use Jira and how to add user stories and track user stories in Jira. We use diagramming tools to do use case diagrams and then also workflow diagrams. And then we use Asana from a project management standpoint. BAs generally don't interact too much with project management tools, but it's just to show you guys how, it all kind of fits into the project. And I think that's about it. Those are all the tools that we're using to implement our projects. All of our documentation is on Google Docs. In the work environment, you'll be using SharePoint or Confluence. They're all document repositories, right? And for my training, we use Google Docs. So it's a shared environment. Everybody has access to the documentation. You can go in and see and update documents as needed. So what I try to do is create as closely as possible the project environment that you guys will be working in when you do land a job. So it makes it a little bit familiar to kind of have your ground once you do land a job.
Awesome. And how important is MS Visio? I have heard of it. Is any of those tools similar to Visio?
Yes. So the workflow diagramming tool that we use is very similar to Visio. Visio is what you'll be using to do workflow diagrams in the work environment. And the only reason I don't use it is because it's an enterprise tool. I use something called draw.io, and it's very similar to Visio. If you learn one, you can, navigate your way around the other. It's not a big transition.
Great. And a couple other questions is one of them, do you help your students with the preparation of interviews?
Yes, we do. We do lots of mock interviews. I have pre-recorded training on how do you answer specific questions that are most widely asked during interviews. And, is more like during what I would say to you guys who are interviewing is that they're not, lots of companies do things differently. They're gauging your confidence level. And so in the group that in my training, we do lots of mock interviews. I teach you guys how to update your resume and optimize it. So you're getting lots of interview calls and you're practicing how to interview with me and with the group. So we become people that sign up for the training, 10, 15, 20 people, how many ever they may be. We get we work with one another, right? Because we're implementing a project. And in the real, once you do land a job, you're never doing anything alone, right? You're working with a team. And that's how I expect people that sign up for the program to work with one another. And so even if I'm not the one giving you feedback, your team members are giving you feedback. So you not only create a network of friends that are in the same place you are, but it's a network of friends that you continue to build once you land your first role, and then you go on to your second role and third role. So everybody is there rooting for you. It's just like an amazing environment that we have with people.
I like that.
And how close they get. Definitely lots of friendships that have developed with people that have been part of the program for sure.
I like that a lot. And the other question is, you teaching BA as well as Scrum Master combined. So how does that work if someone is just looking into being a BA and not a Scrum Master?
So you guys have to remember that we're implementing IT projects, right? And it's the same framework. So Agile and Waterfall, the end result is the same, right? With Agile, there's a lot of hype for companies to move towards Agile. So there's lots of jobs available. Even if you're saying, have on your resume that you have worked as a Scrum Master and it's a BA role, they will still hire you because the process of working with stakeholders and understanding requirements and documenting requirements is the same, right? They're just different approaches of how those IT systems are being implemented. In one approach, you're giving all the requirements up front, and in Agile, you're giving them in bits and pieces. So that's the only difference.
Okay. And the last question is, when people get a job, do you support them?
Yes, there is. Yeah. So right now, when anybody finds a job and they need the extra support, I do have a package that they can sign up for. It's a monthly membership program. It's called BA Mastermind, where, you know, we have a private Slack channel. They can ask me questions, you know, during the week. We meet once a week, and I go through everybody that shows up on the call, and I help answer their questions. If they have something for me to review, we'll take a look at it. And then I also teach like advanced BA topics that, you know, isn't covered in my training, because the training that you'll sign up for now, if you aren't a BA, is mostly covered to get you in the door and, you know, give you enough knowledge where you'll, you know, do well in the interview and help you implement a project and have the confidence of building a project, you know, from scratch. So the mastermind is like more advanced topics, like how do you do data migration? What is enterprise change management? What is vendor management? So things like that. So we cover that in the mastermind program, where I'm here to support you and make sure that you're doing well in your current job. And then also, how do you start to, like, you know, get into higher roles after your first position as a BA.
Great. And when do your cohorts start?
I'm planning to start one mid to late December. It's either going to be a website, like a mobile responsive site, or a mobile, an app project. I'm still trying to work out the details a little bit.
And do you have hours when your classrooms are? I know some of the videos are recorded so one can watch whenever, but
yeah,
on your live, when are the hours and days?
Usually as a team, we'll meet on the weekends for 2 to 3 hours. Saturdays are my most flexible days. So generally I don't have all the details yet, but Saturdays is when we'll be meeting as a team. And that's where I teach, I give you assignments, you go back and do the assignments, a review to make sure I can give you guys feedback on how you're doing.
Okay, and with the recorded videos, if someone has a question, how do they address that? Do they, you know, go on Slack or whatever communication channel and ask questions?
Yeah, each project has its own Slack channel, like a private Slack channel. So you can ask questions in the Slack channel. You can ask me questions when we're meeting live each week. So there's a number of ways.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's all I have for now. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
No worries. Are there any other questions?
Hi.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi.
The question is, the mastermind, is the link available on the site?
I'm sorry?
For the mastermind group, is the link available on the site, on your website?
I'm moving my current site to a different one, so it's not on there. I can send you a link if you're interested in the mastermind.
Thank you. I'll reach out to you.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions, you guys?
So there's a question I sent to you already. Sorry.
Okay. The question is, can you shed light on possibly of being a BA and moving into the product owner role in the agile environment? So you guys, I don't teach product ownership. I don't know what that role entails, except for, okay, so I can tell you the difference between like a Scrum Master and a product owner. Is it possible to make the transition? Lots of people make the transition, so I know it's doable. The difference between a Scrum Master is you're mostly concerned about implementing the project that your product owner has for you, right? Your product owner is mostly responsible for making that project successful, right? So think about a car, right? Like the Lexus, whatever, so that's a product. So a line of cars. I think the best example I can give is my car. I have an Audi Q7, right? So a product owner would be owning a Audi Q7 as a car, right? So each year they have enhancements, each year they have new models. So a product owner would be the one to know the life cycle of a product and is more responsible about the number of sales that they're making that year, the enhancements that are going to be involved in next year, talking to the stakeholders and making sure that everybody is on board on the enhancements and the budgets that they're going to have for that product to make sure that it's continuing to be successful, right? So a product owner is mostly, development is one piece of their job. They're more involved with a lot of other things except for just the development piece. So you'll be responsible for the success of the project, responsible for working with marketing teams to make sure there's outreach and campaigns being done and things like that, where Scrum Master is mostly just concerned with the development piece on what we need to do to make sure that whatever, you know, is high priority on our product backlog is getting done. So a Scrum Master is more concerned about implementing an IT project, right? And a product owner is more, their role is more about making sure that product is successful. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And for me, I've implemented IT projects for 16 years, and that's my bread and butter. That's what I can talk about all day, all night until the cows come home. But I don't know how I would make a product successful. So there's just different things that are like a different skill set required. Okay. Let's take one question, one last question, and then if this is helpful, I can do more of these sessions, like just open-ended sessions if it's helpful for you guys. Okay, is there any other questions? All right, well, this was fun, you guys. Again, I'm always looking for training topics. If there are any, please let me know in the comments area. And I'm more than happy to talk about those topics with you guys. Thank you so much. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.